I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus.
Fuck you too.
I think it's funny that I'm gonna start recording now on that sentiment with one of the most wildest conversations I've probably ever had in my life. It can't be mentioned on the show. It needs to live in that moment. This is for me.
Mm-hmm.
What people don't, well, this is for us actually. This moment is for us. This moment is for you and me, Kitty. This moment is a dedication to you and me, the people we were about 2 minutes ago when we were having that conversation. This moment of the podcast is dedicated to that person who just had that conversation, because it was one of the wildest things I think I've ever heard in my life, and I love it, and I love everything. I love everything about it.
Yay!
Yeah. So
Cool. You're welcome.
I hope future Captain Death doesn't immediately forget about that we had that conversation. And I hope
No.
that
There's no forgetting about that.
through the editing process, I hope that it lives forever. And
good.
and it'll be memorialized in this moment. And that's where I think the haunting nature of reality will at once, you know, in the hopefully far future, if it means that I get a strange box in the mail that may or may not be, you know, of a certain variety, I think I think I would be both surprised and absolutely overwhelmed with pride in that exact moment. Because I also think, and here's the kicker, that if anyone else were to open that box, I would be arrested. So, you know, there's that. And that's what I want to leave. That's what I want to leave that notion with, because if my spouse at the time opens that box, we're going to have a conversation. And you know what? I'm not going to have it. And you know what? There will be no answers for anyone. Instead, I will point them to this episode where they will have to listen to this segment, and then they might, emphasis on might, understand where we were when we recorded. This is episode 314. I am here with Kitty AKA Torus Filth. How are you? How you doing tonight? Or I guess for you today. For you it's today.
It is actually still the Arvo for me, mate.
Fair enough. For me it's going into double digits in the hours of the night. So I'm for me the spooky time has just begun. The night has come on. And so have I.
Yes.
And I'm here with Kitty, I'm here with Torus Filth. We're what do you want to call this episode? Is this like I want you to type in a phrase, what you would say, is this an in memoriam dedicated to the passing of your furry friend?
Yes, maybe just a small part in memoriam. She was a big part of my life, but it doesn't need to be, you know, a main theme. But
I think
actually it's also in tandem with our thing that we were just discussing.
No, I think that's fair. And that's why I would say what's like a phrase or what's something you would say in memoriam of someone who maybe lost something, or what is something you would say to someone if they were more in mourning, or in, you know, or trying to memorialize something?
Oh, shit.
Even if it's something as simple as like goodbye, like what would you What would you want to say?
Aroha nui whanau ake amene.
I want you to type that, send it over to me, and then give me a translation of what the fuck you just said live right here on the podcast.
Okay, I will do that. But also, as I'm doing that, I looked up something, just a couple of things related to the Lotsa Pasta podcast with Te Reo, which is Māori language, right?
Okay.
So I looked up lots of pasta in Te Reo, but I had to write lots of pasta, right?
Yes.
So it came up as He maha na Rimurapa. There are many pastas.
Aren't there?
He maha na Rimurapa. All right. And then I was like, okay, what about creepy pasta? And so that came up as Rimurapa Whakamataku. Which I thought, oh my God, he loves
that is
because
good.
it says fucker.
Type all of those to me, because that also might be the title of the episode. I like that.
Okay, sweet. But the actual translation of Rimurapa Whakamataku is more succinct with terrible pasta, because they don't really have a creepy in Te Reo.
Okay. Like, I mean, that makes sense. Maybe today is terrible pasta.
Yeah. I like that one. Yeah, in Memorium, terrible pasta.
Terrible pasta. It might be. It might be. For today, I wanted to... what I like doing with you the most is just kind of getting like little tastes of things and kind of forcing shorthand thoughts into your mind, directly into your brainstem, and then asking you how you feel about it. Because the last thing we did together was your 300th episode recording, where you read a couple short stories, and yes. I appreciated that. I appreciated the hell out of that. You did a wonderful job.
Yay, thanks.
So I think what I wanted to do with you is kind of get back to, as usual, with my number one fan, I have to get back to what made this show possible in the first place and just read some fucking random stories we found on the internet.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Short stories. Nothing huge. I think I wrote down 4 stories. And
okay.
There is definitely one I'm dedicating to you, and one I would like to read, and then the other 2 I'm going to give you a choice. So if we were to have an intro discussion to today's episode, I just wanted to address that over the last 6 months, I've talked about it on a couple of the other recent episodes. In the last 6 months, I've lost 2 pets. And in the last month, you've lost a pet. And it just feels like we're moving on to a stage of our life where we have to remember what it feels like to grow up a little bit, and what it means to get older, because I think that's a reminder right there when you have to say goodbye to something you love. God. And that's an extraordinarily deep conversation, and I'm not necessarily trying to take us there and have us live there over the course of the next hour and a half, because we're going to be reading ridiculous stories. But if I were to start in our conversation, I would say, what is something, tell me like a story about your cat. Tell us your cat's name, and give us your favorite story of whatever interaction you had with her.
Oh, okay. So my fur baby was about 15 and a half years old. Her name was Carly Mar, mainly based from the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones.
Fuck yeah.
But Mar, because we started out in a suburb called Miramar. And she was half Persian and a little princess, but she was feral as fuck. She would be like, I I'm so lovely. Love me. I'm amazing. Oh yes, I'm such a little lady. And then I'd go and buy like one of those awesome folding couch beanbag type things and set it up and have my room all set up and everything. And then she jumped up on it and she's like, oh, this is nice. And then promptly sat down on it and pissed all through it. I'm like,
That's hilarious. So that's your favorite story of her?
One of, yes.
You
Aside from her
one?
helping me with some witchy stuff, yes. Like when
Well,
yes,
a
when
witch
we
always
travel
needs
around
her
and do
little
stuff.
familiar. A witch always needs her familiar. We need our little creatures.
Oh yes. Yeah. And so, but yeah, living in the real world was all like, oh yes, that's nice. I'm gonna take a shit on it. I'm gonna take a piss on it. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, first off. And your cat was beautiful. It was a beautiful cat.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got to meet both of the animals when you were here. Both of the animals that I have lost.
I feel very lucky to have met them.
When you stayed with me and my brother, you got to meet Daisy, who was a little Scotty terrier.
Yeah.
And she was just a lover. She was a lover through and through. She came to work with us every day. Her presence, now that she's gone, is felt. It is incredibly felt.
Yes,
the office,
I can imagine.
The office has grown colder in her absence, and she was such a loving energy, such a loving dog. Just always wanted to like be around. And I think the thing that I think maybe take for granted when it comes to these animals is how much they just want to be around you and how that's enough for them. And I hope people remember that when they remember their animals and remember how providing for them means something. So, no matter how mad you get at them, I just want, I want people to remember, that they're there for you. And she could have been a therapy dog. I remember telling my brother so many times that he should take her to like old folks' homes and just let the old people love on her, because I think she would just she would stick to them like glue. She would give them, everything she had, because I think that was just her nature, just to care, to care for people in a fun and cute little way. My favorite story of her, by far, is how hungry she was as an animal. Like, she was such a mooch, the type of animal where if you had something in your hand and you were putting it towards your mouth, but then you saw something, you got distracted and you put your hand down for even a second, she is coming over and she is getting it out of your hand because you have stopped putting it near your mouth, and she is taking advantage of every opportunity she has to be able to get that from you. And I think my favorite story is me and my brother ordered food once. I think it was Domino's. We ordered a pizza to get delivered to our house, and we went and we put it down on the table, and we looked around and we was like, fuck, we don't have any drinks. And, we were rolling a spliff and we were going out, and we were like, okay, well, we have a couple sandwiches, a couple, some garlic bread and some pizza. We're going to leave it here on the table. We're going to walk down to the gas station together. You already know where it's going. We're going to walk down to the gas station together. We're going to smoke a blunt, and we're going to come back and we're going to eat, we're going to nosh. And when we got back, my sandwich was eaten. The pizza was on the floor, half eaten. And maybe only like the garlic bread and maybe one other side, some chicken or something, survived because she couldn't get those boxes open. The other two boxes were easier access. And she was full 4 on the table, not even like pushing things off. She was on the table, full up, and she ate my entire sandwich. And I remember just being like, you bitch. That was my sandwich. That's my favorite story about her.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a moment where I didn't realize you fellas had heaps of treats in the cupboard.
I remember.
And so when I went
and
out,
got her stuff.
yeah, when I went out, I was like, I'm getting some treats because she's such a cute little lady.
She is.
And then she's like, you got me treats like I haven't ever had treats.
And then
I'm
she'll
like,
never leave you alone. Yep.
And then I told you, and then you're like, there's like heaps of treats over there. I'm like, oh, what the
You don't
hell?
think we spoiled the shit out of this dog? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love her. I miss her. She was very sweet. We speak of her very fondly. I don't think we were able to be sad about her passing because she was old. It was showing, and it got to the point where I think this is probably where this conversation was intending to go 20 minutes ago, is that I think when an animal is near the end of its life, you're given a choice, and the choice is usually, do I stop things from getting worse, or do I let life play out? And as long as I've been alive, like at least in the US, like here for how things operate over here, like we usually put a stop to things before they get bad. Like we're the type to put things down before they get worse. And
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Yeah,
and that's what I was gonna say. Is that I don't think it's meant for everyone. I've only there were two animals that died
like, she's
on
only
me.
doing two of the. Hey, what?
There were two animals in my life that have died on me. Like I've found them. They've reached the end of their life.
Oh yes.
In my owning them. So I'm not saying I'm averse to a natural passing. I'm just saying that in the way our system works and the way that our care works is I think there's a very much of a like an afterlife care for how things veterinary wise are done over here. And so when she passed, she was having seizures, she was having strokes. She wasn't eating too much anymore, which for her was a big deal. And it was the type of thing where she was going to stroke out. She was going to go into some type of shock, and she was going to like choke and die. And it was going to be really sad and stressful and painful for her. And so we chose to put her down. You know, her like 5 favorite people were all in the same room. They were all holding her, and she just went to sleep. It was very simple. With our cat, with Lucy, she deteriorated. She only lived to be like 9. That was heartbreaking because she wasn't even at her half-life yet, in my opinion. And something just went wrong with her, and we couldn't figure it out. We took her to a bunch of different specialists. We tried to do everything we could. It just wouldn't correct itself. I think something in her just kind of snapped and broke. And unfortunately, life is very tenuous. It can work that way for a lot of things, for a lot of people. And for her, it never realigned. And it got to the point where she couldn't walk anymore. And that's just, it was just very sad. She was howling into the night. She was in pain.
Aww,
we had maybe a night or two with her just howling like that, dragging her body along the floor like a snail, that we were just like, yeah, this is no way to live.
Jesus Christ. And Carly was basically almost at that point. Yeah.
And so we couldn't really keep her in that condition. So unfortunately we had we put her down. And that was really tough because I don't think Alley Cat has ever had to do that before. And this was the first time where she was in the room when it happened.
Oh shit.
And it was very, it was intense. And I think, whenever I bring her up, I think of her fondly. I think it's hard because of the circumstances of her passing were so stressful. And, and what happened to her came out of nowhere. So it's the type of thing where we still don't have answers, and that could be very painful to think about. But I think of her fondly because I don't think what we put down was her anymore. I know it is, figuratively it is, but like in an emotional sense, I think she was checked out for a while.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Carly got stressed out when I took her down to the city for Christmas. But then when she came back to a calmer, familiar, calm settings, she was sweet and continued on for 2 more months, but slowly deteriorating. And it wasn't until that she must have had a stroke in her sleep that it was like, okay, let's call the vet. She was already gone. But in those 2 months, because of my, witchy stuff, during those 2 months, there was a lot of interesting energy exchange, what I'm going to call energy exchange.
Yeah.
And so therefore now I think of her fondly, but on the day it was like, I cried more over her than I have a human.
Exactly.
Yeah. In that moment. But oh my gosh, the gallows humor to cope. Stunning. Yeah. So yes. Thank you, little fur babies, for everything. We appreciate you.
Seriously, I think I do want to dedicate this to people who have been going through some rough times lately. I think when we can kind of take a step back and just kind of refocus ourselves, reconstitute, and collect that energy that you were talking about and just kind of move, push forward the best we can. I think it is the human experience to even make that suggestion here online. But wherever you're listening from, folks, I want you to know, life moves on. Things will get better. And hopefully this takes you to a different place for at least just a moment, so you could relax and laugh and have a good time and just listen to some stories. Gather around the campfire, y'all, and listen to me and Kitty read some stories.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to read some stories, and we're going to disassociate, and we're going to, smoke some herb and, get some fucking Grey Poupon on that shit. We're
That's
gonna get
my
real
favorite
fine
thing
with
to
it.
do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you're feeling up to it, I will let you read first. I have to. You're my guest. I have to.
Oh. All right. Am I starting with the first one?
No, I would. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to impress upon you a choice. I would like to start with the choice, and the choice is: would you like to read a story about someone who wants to get shot?
Oh.
Or would you like to read a story about someone who might have realized their life has already come to an end before they can physically put it to terms?
Ooh.
Like someone who's actively seeking death versus someone who doesn't realize death is coming upon them.
Ooh, seeking death.
Seeking death. Okay.
Yeah.
In that case...
Because aren't we all, whether we like it or not?
I mean, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Just must be me and my crew then.
The existential conversation to have there is, maybe there are people that are, like me, like maybe you, but not everyone. Definitely not everyone.
If you're armed at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me. Yes?
Yeah, if you are armed at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me. Yeah. No,
Amazing. Love it.
I think there's something really funny about this title, and it reminds me of a character, I want to say, from Borderlands 2, where the mission is just to kill him. He hires you to kill him, and you show up, and you shoot him in the face, and you kill him, and then you collect the mission from his corpse. So that's what I think of when I see that title. What do you think of?
Me, but at Glenmont Metro.
I was going to say maybe like a Craigslist ad or something, Missed connections. All right. This story is by someone named Sarcasonomicon. So it's like sarcasm and Necronomicon had a baby. So I'm going to let Kitty AKA Torus Filth read this first story called If You're Armed and at the Glenmont Metro, Please Shoot Me. Take it away, Kitty.
Make it a headshot. Shoot me in the temple, aiming slightly downwards. I need the bullet to travel the shortest possible distance through my brain before it hits my hippocampus. If I'm lucky, the sensation of the gunshot ripping through my skull will only last a few decades.
Decades?
As awful. Decades. I want it to echo in my skull. Run around in there, blah, 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 in my skull. For decades. As awful as this sounds, you'd be doing me an enormous favor. Death by a headshot. As soon as possible.
Full
is
caps.
Vastly better. Is vastly better than the alternative. My ordeal started over 10,000 years ago at 10:15 this morning. I earn extra money by participating in drug trials. Oh my God, I love this story already. This is amazing. I earn extra money by participating in drug trials. I'm a so-called healthy subject who takes experimental drugs to help assess side effects. Once it was a kidney drug. A few times it's been something for blood pressure or cholesterol. This morning, they told me the drug I took was a psychoactive substance intended to accelerate brain function.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, who hasn't?
Fucking limitless over here. Fucking Jimmy Neutron brain blast.
Fucking Kitty and her flatmate 10 years ago.
Hell yeah.
None of the drugs I had tested so far have ever done anything for me, in the recreational sense. In other words, none of the drugs I've tested have given me a killer buzz or mellowed me out or anything. Maybe I've always ended up the placebo group. What? Maybe I've always ended up in the placebo group.
Yeah.
But nothing I've tested has affected me at all. Today's drug was different. This shit worked. They gave me a pill at 10:15 and told me to hang out in the waiting room until they called me back for some tests. About 30 minutes, the research assistant told me. I flopped onto the waiting room couch and read a few articles from a copy of Psychology Today that was sitting at the coffee table. They hadn't called me back when I finished the Psychology Today, so I picked up a US news and read it cover to cover. Then I read an old Scientific American. It's taking them so damn long. I sluggishly turned my head to look at the wall clock. It was only 10:23 a.m. I had read all 3 magazines in 8 minutes. I remember thinking this was going to be a long day. I was right.
I want to say that the waiting room itself is probably the experiment.
Yeah, probably,
this person doesn't know that they're already being watched and the experiment has already started.
It kind of reminds me of the Mysterious Benedict Society series, and there's a waiting room and the clock has like weird jagged lines through it, so it's all disorientating, and then the shapes of the room are all disorientating and the seconds are passing, but it feels like years, and then the kid's already nervous of the principal coming out to go see him, and
I fucking love that.
Yeah. Weird program, dude. All right. The waiting room had a little bookshelf with some used hardcovers on it. When I stood up to walk to the bookshelf, it felt like my legs barely worked. It's not that they were weak, they were just slow. It took a full minute just to stand up off the couch and another minute to take 2 steps to the bookcase.
Jesus Christ.
I scanned... Yeah. Also experience something like that. I scanned the old books on the shelf and picked out a copy of Moby Dick. My arms had the same problems as my legs. Just reaching 1 foot in front of me to grab the book took a long time. I actually got bored just waiting for my hand to reach the spine of the book. Oh, so he's like a sloth. He reads fast but moves sloth-like. Weird. I slogged back to the couch and collapsed onto it in a slow motion fall that reminded me of the low gravity hops of astronauts on the moon. Fake. I opened Moby Dick slowly and began reading. I started with Call Me Ishmael and got as far as Ahab throwing his pipe into the sea, which was all the way to the friggin' chapter 30 before they called me back. How are you feeling? The research assistant asked me. I feel slow, I said. Actually, it's the other way around. Everything seems slow because you're so fast. But my legs, my arms, they're moving in slow motion. Your body seems like it's moving slowly because your brain is fast. Your brain is running 10 or 20 times faster than normal. You are thinking and perceiving reality at an accelerated pace, but your body is still constrained by the laws of biomechanics. Frankly, you're moving much faster than a normal person. She pantomimed in a jogging motion. But your brain is running so much faster now that even your fast walk seems very slow to you.
That's nuts.
I thought about my slow motion flop onto the waiting room couch. Even if my muscles had slowed down, my body would still react to gravity the same way. But in the waiting room, I even fell in slow motion. Slow muscles couldn't explain why gravity seemed weaker. My brain was going at warp 10. That's how I managed to read 3 magazines in the first 30 chapters of Moby Dick in 15 minutes. They ran a series of tests on me. The physical tests were fun. They made me juggle 3 balls, then 4, then 6. I had no problem keeping 6 balls in the air, because they seemed to be moving so slowly. It was boring, frankly, waiting for each ball to move through its arc so I could catch it with my slow motion hands and toss it back into the air. They threw Cheerios in the air and I caught them with chopsticks. They dropped a handful of coins and I counted the total value before they hit the ground.
Hell yeah.
The cognitive... yeah, that's pretty fun, actually. The cognitive tests were less fun, but very illuminating. Finish a 50-word search, 3 seconds. Solve an intricate maze drawn onto a poster-sized paper, 2 seconds. View a slideshow projected at 10 images per second and answer detailed questions about what I saw. 95% correct. They told me I measured over 250 on the Knopf scale.
Knopf. Yeah.
Get out of it, you bloody Knopf. Apparently, that's deep into the superhuman range of thinking speeds. Then they sent me home. It'll wear off in a few hours, they said, which will seem like days to you. Try to use the residual effects to get some work done. Catch up on work emails while you're still in high-speed mode. The ride home was horrible. It was only 3 metro stops, and in real-world time, it only took about 35 minutes. But in my drug-accelerated hypertime, it felt like days. Just walking out of the medical research suite into the elevator seemed like it took an hour. I sprinted out of the office, willing my legs to push me faster. But the laws of biomechanics held me prisoner. As accelerated as my brain was, I couldn't do anything to make my legs work faster. The huge disconnect between my body and mind made it extremely difficult to judge how and when to slow down, turn, or rotate my body. I had basically turned into giant slow motion spares. It's like my household. I misjudged my speed and rammed into the wall by the elevator button at a pretty good speed. Even though I could see the wall coming at me, I couldn't make my finger outstretched to hit the elevator button, move away fast enough, and I jammed it against the wall, hard. The pain was intense. If my brain had been running at regular speed, it probably only would have hurt for 30 seconds or so. But in my accelerated state, the intense pain seemed to last for half an hour, 45 minutes maybe. The elevator ride was horrible. It felt like I spent 4 or 5 hours just descending 7 floors with nothing to look at but the interior of the elevator car. I sprinted to the metro station. I have to admit, this part was almost fun. Even though my body moved at what seemed to me super slow speed, I could still carefully choose how and where to place my feet, swing my arms, and turn my torso. It only took a block or two to getting used to having a brain that ran 24 times faster than my body. Then I basically sprint danced the rest of the way, twisting and jerking between people on the sidewalk and dodging moving cars with inches, aka minutes, of clearance. I spent an hour in my time frame descending into the subway and running to the platform. Endless tedium waiting the 6 minutes for the Red Line train to arrive. Although there was more to look at on the metro platform than inside the elevator, it was still intensely boring. I should have stolen that copy of Moby Dick. The Red Line train roared into the station in slow motion. The normally high-pitched squeal of its brakes and frequency shifted by my high-speed mind to a low tone, like a monotone tuba solo.
I appreciate
like
the recreation.
It wasn't just the squealing subway train that was 3 octaves lower than normal. All sound was slowed to the point of near inaudibility. Voices were gone, shifted below the threshold frequency of my hearing. I did manage to hear a screaming baby on my subway car. Her shrieks slowed to sound like whale songs. Sharp sounds like car horns and trucks bouncing over potholes were low, muddied roars like distant thunder. Back at the research offices, I could still hear and communicate with the research staff, but now verbal communication with anyone would be impossible. The effects of the drugs were still intensifying. Holy shit. I spent what seemed like days on that fucking Red Line train. Days. Listening to the whale song of the screaming baby and the tuba solo of the brakes, where ordinary voices were frequency shifted out of my audio range. Smells didn't seem to be affected. I never became nose blind to the body odor, the stench of the train brakes, and the melange of farts and other smells wafting through the metro car. Rad, bro. I finally got back to my apartment. Sprinting through my open door and into the front hall at full speed was like a slow, relaxing drift down a lazy river. I was relieved to be home. At least I had stuff I could do there. I picked up the book I was reading, 100 Years of Solitude, and finished it. Despite turning the pages so quickly that I tore many of them, it seemed like most of the time I spent finishing the book was spent on page turning and not actually reading. 3 minutes had passed since I got home. I tried surfing the internet. My God, it takes a long time for computers to boot these days. But it was too frustratingly slow. Hours, seemingly, to load each new page, and a fraction of a second to read it. 100 articles in my newsfeed to read in just 3 more minutes done. I dipped into my pile of yet to be read books and finished 2 more. 4 more minutes had passed. I decided to try sleep off the remaining effects of the drug. Unfortunately, whatever part of my brain is responsible for perception, the part that's been accelerated to hyperspeeds by the drug, isn't the same as the part that governs sleep. Despite being awake, for what I perceived as days, my physical brain still thought it was 1:25 p.m. Ah, fuck that.
Yeah.
I was not ready for sleep. Nevertheless, I tried to sleep. I walked to my bedroom, a slow 45-minute drift through my apartment, and flung myself into bed, lazily falling like a feather onto the mattress. I closed my eyes and lay there for hours and hours, 10 minutes of reality time, before giving up. Sleep would not come. I was facing what was going to feel like days or maybe even weeks of being trapped in a slow-motion prison. So I took an Ambien. The sensation of the pill and the splash of water I used to swallow it sliding down my throat was sickening. A lump that blocked my breathing, moving like a slug down my esophagus. Blech. I read a book. 10 minutes passed. I read another. 18 minutes since I took the Ambien. I threw the book across the room in disgust at my situation. The book slowly pirouetted and spun through the air like a leaf blowing in a breeze. It hit the wall with a long, faint rumble, the only sound I had heard for what seemed like hours, then drifted to the floor like a flip-flop sinking in a swimming pool. The force of gravity hadn't changed since I took the pill. The laws of physics were the same. It was just my perception of time that had gone wackadoo. This meant I could use the speed things seemed to fall as a way of judging the effects of the drug. Thank you, Carpite. Based on how long it took the book to drift to the floor, I estimated the effects of the drug were still intensifying. Oh my God, this is horrifying.
That's a bad trip.
Oh, mate. I read a magazine. I turned on the television. I clearly saw each frame of video like I was watching a slideshow. Ugh. Frustrated, I turned the television off. I read some more. The first 2 books of Churchill's A History of the English-Speaking Peoples. It's exactly a light read. Frankly, I hated it. Yeah, I would too, bro. But given the hours of tedium it would take to go get another book off my bookshelf, just sitting on the couch and reading Churchill was better. Thoughts and prayers, bro. Or at least even worse. Or less worse. It had been 35 minutes since I took the Ambien. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. Time passed. I inhaled. An hours-long process. Time passed. I exhaled for more hours. Sleep would not come. I needed a new plan. I decided to go back to the offices where they gave me the drug. Maybe they would have something that could counteract its effects, or at least something to knock me out until it wore off. I exited my apartment as fast as possible, taking hours in my time frame to do so. I didn't even bother locking the door. It would have taken too long. Down the stairs, it's faster than the elevator if you run. Through the lobby, out the front door, and onto the street. These few things felt like a long day at the office. Sprinting down the street, dancing and weaving between pedestrians with what must have looked like to them superhuman dexterity, down the first flight of stairs at the metro, across the landing, another hour, then onto the second flight of stairs. That's when the Ambien hit me. Oh no! The Ambien didn't make me sleepy. No, not at all. Instead, it must have had a severe cross-reaction with the experimental drug I took this morning. I was bounding down the second flight of stairs, moving in slow motion, but still making perceptible progress. Then, wham! Everything stopped. The dull roar of the street and metro noise ceased, replaced by the most perfect silence I've ever experienced. My downwards motion seemed to completely freeze. Before the Ambien kicked in, my perception of time was maybe a few hundred times slower than real time. After the Ambien took effect, time moved thousands of times slower. Oh, sweet baby Jesus.
That's nuts.
Every second seemed like days to me. Even just moving my eyes to focus on a new point was like an impossibly slow scroll across my visual field. Over the course of the afternoon, I learned how to walk, run, and jump when my mind ran hundreds of times faster than my body, but with another 4 or 5 orders of magnitude of slowed down caused by the Ambien, body control was almost impossible. I fell on the stairs. Even though I was all but frozen in mid-step, controlling my muscles was impossible. Oh my God, does this mean he pissed himself? Probably.
It means that whatever pain he's going to feel is going to last centuries.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus!
Yeah, this is how.
I don't like it. Oh, mate. Okay. I commanded my foot forwards for hours, then backwards for hours more, when it seemed like I would miss the next step. Hours attempting to adjust the angle of my ankle, then readjusting when it felt wrong. Despite these efforts, I rolled my ankle on the next step. God damn it. The pain wasn't at all mitigated by the slowness. And hours of increasing strain on my bent ankle. Oh, god damn, dude. The nerve signals that send pain into the brain must work differently than the nerves in my ear. Sonic energy was spread out over time, diluted until it was imperceptible. Pain flowed into my brain, undiluted by the change in my perception of time. Hours and hours of increasing weight on my turned ankle turned into hours of increasing pain upon increasing pain. I pitched forwards, my high-speed mind completely unable to control my low-speed body. I drifted downwards for days, managing to rotate my torso enough to keep my head from impacting the ground first. I eventually landed on my right shoulder. At first, the impact wasn't even noticeable. Then, I felt a slight pressure in my shoulder as it came in contact with the ground. The pressure grew, bringing increasing pain for hour upon hour. My shoulder finally gave out, popping out of its socket with an endless, sickening tug. Blech. I came to stop days later, crumpled onto the ground, staring at the ceiling. The pain in my shoulder still screaming with the intensity of a fresh, violent injury. I had plenty of time to think during that fall. If every second seemed like days to me, then each minute of real-world time would be like years. Even if the drug cleared out of my system in the next 2 to 3 hours, this nightmare would seem to last centuries. Oh, sweet baby Joseph. Oh my God. By the time I hit the ground, I had a plan. I would somehow get to the platform and throw myself in front of a train.
Yeah.
I twisted onto my hands and knees, days of my dislocated shoulder crying for relief. I misjudged my rotation and rolled onto my back. I tried again, collapsing onto my face as I tried to figure out how to control a body that moved slower than grass grew. Weeks of effort were finally rewarded with success. I stabilized on my hands and knees. If just getting on all fours was this difficult, I figured that walking or running was completely out of the question. So I crawled. I crawled through the metro tunnel. The dumb looks on the faces of the crowd lingered on me for weeks. I crawled under the turnstile and onto the escalator. The escalator spilled the rush hour crowd onto the platform at the same time, or at the same speed a glacier spills ice into the sea. I looked out over the crowded platform during my interminable downward ride. It is what it is.
No,
It is what I said
it.
it is.
You got it.
Oh, okay, good. The train's status sign said the next train wouldn't arrive for 20 minutes. Like,
400 years later.
20 minutes was like a year to me. I'd have to spend a year on the metro platform waiting to die. I crawled off the escalator, enduring days of stupid expressions on the commuters' faces. I crawled a few feet to a concrete bench and curled up next to it, trying to find a position to lessen the pain in my shoulder. Then my problem with time got worse, impossibly worse. The massive slowdown on the stairs was just the beginning of the interaction between the experimental drug and the Ambien. It fully hit me while I was curled up by the bench. I blinked. Years of darkness followed. Sound was already gone, and with my blink, sight was gone as well. All that existed was the pain from my fall. My hyper-accelerated mind wasted no time compensating for the lack of sensory input. Voices spoke to me. They sung to me in languages that never existed. Patterns and faces and colors came and went in my mind's eye. I recalled my whole life and imagined living another. I forgot English. I settled into a profound despair. I spoke to God. I became God. I imagined a new universe and brought it to life with my thoughts. Then I did it all again and again. My eyes opened with geologic slowness, a faint glow, weeks, a slit of light, weeks, a narrow view of the metro platform, ankles of the commuters near me, and an advertisement on the opposite wall. I extracted my phone from my pocket, a project that spanned decades. How could I even explain the boredom? The pain in my shoulder is nothing compared to the boredom. Every thought I can think, I have thought hundreds of times already. The view of ankles and advertisements never changes. Never. The boredom is so intense, it's tangible, like a solid object of metal and stone wedged into my skull. Inescapable. What are my options? If I crawl and fall onto the tracks without an oncoming train to crush me, I won't die. I'll experience even more pain from a 4-foot fall, but I'll most likely be rescued by some do-gooder on the platform and unable to act when the train finally does arrive. My suffering in that scenario will be endless. So I wait for the train so I can throw myself under it. When it finally hits me, I will experience the pain of being ripped to pieces for centuries until finally the light of life leaves my brain and my experience ends. I've lived hundreds of lifespans at the foot of this bench. I'm far older in spirit than any human who has ever lived. Most of my life experience has been a snapshot of pain, huddled on the floor of a subway platform with an unchanging view of ankles and advertisements. This post is my plan B, my Hail Mary, my long shot. I've spent lifetimes typing and posting this message in the hope that someone will read it and become convinced that my suffering must end. Someone on this platform right now, someone who will find a man curled under the bench, the man who crawled down the escalator, and kill him as swiftly as possible. A bullet to the temple. If you're armed and at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me. Hey, I fucking love that story. Oh my God,
that was gnarly.
Epic.
That was gnarly.
Wow. That's like, yeah. I have experienced little bits and pieces of those in my journey.
Same.
And yeah, whoa. I can imagine, bro. And just wow, holy shit.
Same.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
I remember telling this story a long time ago, probably when I was reading Left Right Game, so over half as many episodes now. This is early 100s. I had a bad trip on mushrooms and it lasted forever. My perception of time was drawn out to hours, but I'm reminded that it was probably just minutes.
Yeah, dude.
I did a series of things that to me felt like I was tripping for hours, but then, I looked at the clock, or I asked my brothers after the fact, like, what was I doing? And they were like, just moving around a lot for like a half hour. And I was like, it was only a half hour? And they were like, yeah, it's only a half hour. And I was like, yeah, but I've been fucking losing my mind over here. And they're like, you're fine. Yeah. Didn't feel it at the time, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was mushrooms. So.
Yeah. Holy crap, dude. Yeah.
What do you?
I don't know if it was mushrooms to me.
What do you equate that to? Or you don't have to get into it if you don't want to.
Probably acid and being absolutely drunk.
Okay.
And
I've definitely felt weird on acid
at a metal gig, or I don't know, in some back alley to go smoke weed or something, and then ending up on all fours and trying to navigate
a subway. Yeah.
Getting back onto my feet, or even just navigating, swooping and swirling in between all the busy people going to all the different clubs.
I hear
in the city, and just swiping in between people to get to the next place, and then there's other people who aren't on the same level.
I liked the way that was written. Yeah. Everything was just broken down to the process, which I can appreciate. Because that's what your focus becomes. Your focus becomes
exactly.
You're kind of in your own head, your process in your own body, trying to navigate it. Like I like to think of the SpongeBob episode where he's the fine dining and breathing at the same time, where there's like 300 SpongeBobs running around his mind, and they're like, that's the only thing we need right now. Burn everything else. All that we need to know is fine dining and breathing. And then someone asks him his name, and all of the SpongeBobs are running around in his mind setting things on fire because they don't remember the name. It's like, what's our name? What's our name? I don't remember our name. Like, yeah, that's the experience.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, fully, dude. Oh my God.
All right. I'm going to read our next story.
I love that one. That was such a good choice.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was gnarly. Yeah. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to read our next story if you'd like to join me. This one is by an author named M59 Gar. And I'm going to read this one. The title is, If You Ever Find Yourself Handling Blue Dollars, It May Already Be Too Late.
Like in Monopoly? What is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's what I mean. Like, your story was from the perspective of someone asking for death. Mine is from the perspective of someone probably having death forced upon them in a really weird scenario.
Okay. All right.
If you ever find yourself handling blue dollars, it may already be too late. I don't have a gambling problem. That's the first thing I want known. It's also what they all say, right? No, I'm not addicted to gambling, but I have a codependency issue with someone who is. I'm not the coolest guy on the block, and I'm not particularly good at anything. Ted is, though, and we've been best friends since we were 4. He's the one who always pushes forward blindly into adventures, and I guess I'm the one who always gets him back out when things go sideways. There's always been an element of luck to our continued physical and financial survival, but never more than now. We'd flown out to Napa Valley for a friend's wedding and already ditched the reception party at around 11. I could hardly afford to do anything. I'd only been able to come because Ted had bought me a ticket. Because I was only there on his generosity, I followed him to the quiet and rather empty bars that sparsely dotted the area. It was a beautiful country, filled with vineyards and history, but it was not a party town. This frustrated Ted, of course, who began plying the locals with drinks in order to interrogate them about local hotspots. Somebody has to be having fun in this town, he would say with a grin. One bitter old man finally spoke up at the third empty bar we invaded. There's a casino if you really need it that bad. We looked at our phones, but Google Maps showed nothing. It won't be on any map, the old man said, scowling at us. Just go south from here and you'll find it. Behind our informant, I saw an unhappy look on the bartender's face. That should have tipped me off, but Ted was already thanking the old man and heading for the door. I followed quickly, ignoring the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. Driving through the rolling hills at night was a claustrophobic and confusing experience. Our phone signal dropped and we found ourselves driving purely by instinct. West, south, east. It was impossible to know for sure. We stuck to the sole road until it turned to dirt underneath the wheels. That's when I almost called the whole thing. But Ted pulled up outside a graveyard, hell yeah, and pointed, "Look, cars!" And he was right. 24 cars were parked on the grass next to an unassuming old church that had all its windows boarded up. He'd only caught the sight across the graveyard and through the trees because he's been looking so intently. Triumphant, he said, "That's a hidden party if I've ever seen one," and carefully drove the car between the headstones to reach the improvised parking area. I just feel like they're going to walk into a cult. What says casino to you in this situation? Like that. Summoning fucking eldritch beings in a fucking broken down church. I climbed out with trepidation. Even up close, the century-old church looked dilapidated, dark, and abandoned. Come on, this is too much. Ted wasn't having it. He ran right up and pushed open the front door, and a bright light and the sounds of electronic games burst forth. In a moment, he was gone, and I was left to step across the high grass alone. The fact that there was actually a hidden casino here lifted my spirits a little. Maybe it was all just a gimmick to encourage people to drink and gamble more. Funny, it still sounded quiet and looked dark until the moment I cracked the door open. The light and noise swallowed me, and I blinked repeatedly until my ears and eyes adjusted. I was almost disappointed to find that the expansive place within was exactly the same as any of the casinos Ted had made us visit in Las Vegas last year. Vaguely, old-timey red and gold carpets ran lush under warm lighting, and drunk businessmen and their accompanying younger dates played at scattered locations throughout. An old lady glared at me, defending her slot machine, and pulled the lever only after I moved past. Finally relaxing, I shrugged. Whatever. We weren't going to be robbed or stabbed here. This was still Napa Valley, after all. In fact, they were rather accommodating. A wonderfully attractive waitress came by, said hello to me, and offered me a free drink on the house. I took it with bashful surprise. Ted was already moving about the place to scout the best games and tables. I caught up to him, drink in hand, and he settled near a roulette table. "Let's just watch for a bit," he said quietly. "Make sure everything's on the level. Hidden in a church like this, I doubt they stick to gaming commission codes." That made sense. We watched and listened for a bit, enjoying the taste of free drinks and the sight of pretty girls as middle-aged businessmen won and lost with varying degrees of frequency. One pepper-haired Asian suit went on a lucky streak, getting the crowd all riled up, himself included. While onlookers shrieked with excitement, he bet it all. He lost. "Seems legit," Ted told me. "I'm gonna head over to the blackjack tables for a minute," and he moved off to begin playing. "That was everything I had," the Asian businessman said. I gotta do that again. This one's dedicated to frowns. "That was everything I had," the Asian businessman said, dismayed. The two girls that had been clinging to his arms disengaged and began to look disinterested. Hurriedly, he made a motion to a casino manager, and the well-dressed but subtly subversive facilitator brought him a small suitcase. It clicked open with a rush of air, and I watched as the unlucky gambler pulled out bundled stacks of blue dollar bills. That was odd. They were American dollars, same faces, designs, everything, just dark blue instead of green. Was this fake money? Some sort of in-house system? Come to think of it, I saw no chips, just money. If these were the replacement for chips, why all the care to make them so similar to real dollars? The gambler in question did not have the same qualms. He gladly placed the stacks on the table. The crowd grew energized again, and the girls began showing him attention once more. Feeling a little strange, I moved off seeking Ted, and I found him at the blackjack table as he won a hand. Grinning, he pumped a fist. "I like this place. Come on, play." "I don't have any money for this," I told him, sheepish. "Here's some." He handed me $100 bill. I took it and sat, but secretly stashed the 100 and pulled the last of my own cash reserves from my wallet. As I always did, I would return his money back to him when he wasn't looking. He never made me feel bad about it, and he had a high-paying job besides, but I just couldn't stomach leeching off of someone else like that. We played a few hands while still enjoying the free drinks, and I drank slower to remain sober-ish, but Ted guzzled away, having the time of his life. He lost quite a few hands, but played well, and actually started accumulating more money than he'd come in with. I, in contrast, lost all of my meager cash rather quickly. Upon the loss of my last dollar, a suited man with slicked back hair and a politician's grin approached and leaned down between us, arm on the back edge of each of our chairs. He spoke with a thick Middle Eastern accent, although his skin was pale enough that it was uncertain what region he was from. "Gentlemen, welcome. I don't think I've seen you or grace our establishment before. I am Malcolm." "Nice to meet you," Ted said. "This place is great. Love the free drinks." "Yes," Malcolm said with a widening grin. "A small expense in the face of a casino's profits. I am not a greedy man." "So you're the owner?" I asked, not wanting to be left out. "Yes, but think of me as your friend." He finally moved back and stood upright. His gaze shifted to me. "I see you are out of money. Would you like to keep playing?" He motioned a manager over, and a briefcase was opened before me, complete with stacks of blue dollar bills I'd seen before. I glanced over awkwardly. Ted was suspicious but open to the idea. "What are these?" "They represent debt," Malcolm said graciously. "Interesting," Ted looked to me. "You should do it, Ryan." But that was not my name. "I think I'm all right, Jason," I replied. What did he have in mind? I imagined he was planning to use these blue dollars if needed and then slip out. They couldn't make us pay back a debt if they had no idea who we were. Accepting my refusal, Malcolm ordered the suitcase closed and withdrew. "Good luck, gentlemen." I was left with a chill and a shiver. From then on, I could only sit and watch as Ted gambled, talked up girls, and had a good time. The free drinks were no longer offered to me, and indeed, none of the patrons or employees would so much as look at me. I should have noticed, but again, my life was often lonely. I simply accepted it. This dude sucks. We moved from game to game, eventually ending up back at roulette, and Ted soon found himself in a situation we had witnessed earlier. Energized crowd, streak of lucky wins, and a potential for a huge payoff. Despite my whispered warnings, he bet everything he had. The ball bounced, the numbers were called, and I sighed. He had lost. Malcolm returned with a grin. I imagined to be rather hungry, and the suitcase was offered to Ted. Someone in the crowd squeezed my forearm in warning, but by the time I looked, it was impossible to tell who had done it. "Don't. Let's go home." "Come on, Ryan," he shouted back. I could tell he still intended to rip off the establishment. "Let's have some fun." Reaching down, he eagerly pulled out 2 armfuls of blue dollar stacks, most of which he pawned off on me. I held them as he bet blue money on another roll. It might have been my imagination, but the stacks felt subtly warm. He won, thankfully, but that quickly led to more bets, and I watched with a sinking feeling as my load of blue dollars shrank. The eyes of the crowd were upon us very intently now, and Malcolm seemed to be staring solely at Ted, grinning only when Ted looked his way. "We should go," I said again, but Ted ignored me. There were 100 opportunities to leave, but Ted took none of them. At long last, his final blue dollar went to the house. At that point, he whispered his intent to me, and I took off running after him a heartbeat later. I made it to the door and burst into the cool night air, but Ted remained just within. "What are you doing?" I shouted to him. "Get out of here!" He seemed horrified. He stared down at his feet as they toed the red and gold carpet's edge. I can't leave." Malcolm approached calmly behind Ted, flanked by 2 suited managers. Sensing something was wrong, I leapt forward and kept the church door from closing, but I made sure to remain just outside. "Malcolm, what the hell is this?" The grinning man gave a small laugh. "I told you that my money was a form of debt. People like your friend here never listen. They think they can cheat the house. Perhaps that would be possible if the house, in this case, were not a demon. But it is. I am. And he is now indebted." I stared up at him, trembling, but it seemed that I was not in direct danger. The next question was obvious. What does he owe? "The same thing that is always owed," Malcolm told me, his grin widening along his cheeks in a starkly inhuman manner. "Each blue dollar represented a portion of his soul. If even one remained, there was a chance he might win it all back, and more, thus, I would not technically own him. With not even one blue dollar left, he has no chance of escape. He is mine." Looking past him, I saw the patrons and the employees watching us, and I understood. They were all his. The Asian businessman I had seen gambling had been one of his, free but no longer. I looked back to Malcolm, thinking about his explanation of chance. "So you operate by rules, then?" "Of course. I am a demon, rule-bound by nature. This type of thing must be enacted fairly." I'm calling bullshit. Ted still struggled with the invisible threshold, his eyes on me, his expression desperate. "How do I get him out?" I asked, my pulse racing. If the roles had been reversed, I was sure Ted would have a plan, but I had no idea what to do. Malcolm laughed softly for a full 5 seconds before answering. "There is nothing you can do except leave. To buy back even a single blue bill, he must have money. He has no money. Therefore, he cannot buy back the single blue bill required. Believe me when I tell you that this is not my establishment's, how do you Americans say? First rodeo." Ted began screaming, but a gesture from Malcolm silenced him. Ted continued moving and opening his mouth, certainly, but no noise came out. Heart thudding in my chest hard enough that I feared I might pass out, I reached in my back pocket and slipped out the $100 bill. "How many of his blue dollars will this get me?" "It must be his money, not yours," Malcolm replied, his expression uncertain for the first time since I'd seen him. "It is his," I shouted. "He gave it to me to hold." A manager whispered in Malcolm's ear, and a frustrated sigh followed. "At current exchange rates, that 100 will purchase 21 of his blue bills." The other manager opened the suitcase showing 21 loose bills, and I scooped them up before dropping the 100 in their place. Without warning, Ted's screams became audible again, and he fell forward into the graveyard with me. Grabbing him by instinct, I kept him from falling completely down, and Malcolm stood staring at us with anger. Now that his careful veneer was fading, I could see ghastly undertones in his skin, and the pale outlines of numerous gnarled horns on his head, and on the heads of the managers beside him. Ted accepted the 21 blue dollars from me and stood slowly recovering his wits and breath. Jesus, they had me! He gripped my shoulder. You got me out! You got me out! You always do. Thank you. Thank you. I nodded and began backing away from that unhallowed place. There was no way we could have known. Care to make another wager? The demon at the church door asked. Now that you know what we are, there are greater winnings available. How would you care? For immortality? Perhaps the power of flight? Or precognition? We can gift you these things, unassuming you win enough. Ted stopped following me and turned to look back at Malcolm's charred face. A terrible sinking feeling overcame me. Don't! Imagine how much we could win if we could see the future, Ted said, still frozen in place. We'd be set for life. He's lying, I shouted. I cannot lie, Malcolm replied with amusement. You know this. I'll just bet 20, Ted called back. I'll still have one, so I'll still be free. I kept screaming, but Ted staggered toward that open door and pushed within. Fully gruesome now, Malcolm gave me a maggot-filled smile, and the door shut of its own accord. Opening and closing the rotted wood a few times, I discovered nothing but a musty and abandoned church within. I could also now see that the cars parked outside were rusted and ancient, with models ranging from modern to classic. Those that had come here over the last 50 years had never left. Surely I wasn't the first to turn down the blue soul money. How had I never heard of the old man at the bar? His bitterness. He'd lost somebody here, to this place, to Malcolm, and Ted had been an obviously doomed soul from the start. Telling him had simply sped up the inevitable. I began the long walk home. I was alone now, but that was no longer my biggest fear. I'd done my part. I'd pulled a lucky last-minute move and saved Ted from a demon uniquely suited to his flaws, but he'd chosen to go back anyway. There was nothing I could do but go alone and wonder when my own particular brand of demon would fall across my path. On that day, I too would be lost. Thus was born Malcolm's demonic confidence. Even with friends to offer one last chance at escape, we're all human. We are each our own doom. I liked it up until that last page. It's okay. It's okay for it to be an Aesop's Fables type of thing where comeuppance is all that we need. It didn't need to be this it didn't need to end with this existential and we are all religiously going to be undone by our mortal sin. No. My sins, I'll tell you right now, my sins are jerking off and smoking weed. I'm not going to die jerking off and smoking weed. I'm going to die having a heart attack eating too much bacon. These things are different. You can't convince me that these are the same.
Recently. Yeah. I've been watching Supernatural recently, and this gave me a very Supernatural episode vibe.
Oh, yeah. This is 100% Crowley This is Crowley. I wish I could go back and read it in his accent now, but this is Crowley running a shitty, you know, side gig that the brothers fucking stumble upon, you know.
Dean, you've only got 21
Sammy!
delivery.
Sammy!
Sammy!
Sam!
I can do this, Sam.
Sam! Dean! Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was some kind of portal into. I thought it was going to be like a malicious genie of some sort with the whole Middle Eastern thing.
You're not far off.
Yeah.
You're genuinely not far off.
But genies are basically Middle Eastern demons anyway.
They are. Yeah, truthfully, if we're breaking it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. This one I did pull aside for you. I think if I wanted you to read a second story, I wanted you to read this one. Kitten. Your name's Kitty.
Yeah.
This episode is dedicated to your kitty. I think it's fitting that we read a story about a cat. Exactly. All of those things. Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it.
This story also from NoSleep. All of the stories today are from NoSleep. This story is by mmartinv.
Kitten. The kitten was covered in dried blood when I found her. Barely the size of my hand, the trembling thing tottered its way towards me in fits and stops. She moved like a broken wind-up toy. It had been years since I had a farm cat, so the appearance of a mewing trespasser was a mystery. The farm was far enough from town that I never saw a stray animal. There were just too many predators between me and a civilization. Someone must have dumped a pregnant female near the farm, I thought. I searched for others in the litter while holding the shaking kitten under my arm. The kitten had been living under a half-empty grain bag, and the mother was nowhere to be seen. Neither were any litter mates. Only a bloody circle of dirt with tufts of fur and bits of bone let me know that a cat had been there. Looks like we're on our own, I told the shaking kitten as I placed it under my coat to keep it warm. We were in the first few weeks of fall, and the cold of the north was making itself known. I crunched my way through the frost to the house and kicked off my boots on the porch. The kitten cried with every breath. I was sure it needed to eat. I remembered an old conversation about how sheep milk wasn't suitable for cats. So I placed the kitten in my warming box and searched for emergency formula recipes. I found a recipe that I had the ingredients to make and set to work, mixing a can of evaporated milk, egg yolk, and a couple of tablespoons of Caro syrup. I didn't have a bottle that would work for the kitten, but there were a few syringes around from vaccinating the sheep. I unwrapped a syringe, filled it with the emergency formula, and pulled my little patient from her box. She took to milk quickly, and I began to wonder where she was putting it all as I filled the syringe over and over with the custard-like formula. After the third syringe, I gently squeezed the kitten's tummy, but it didn't feel full. I continued feeding her, and I studied her as she ate. The kitten's paws were massive for its size, almost clownish, and every paw had a sixth toe. Most of the kitten's coat was matted with blood, but rich chocolate fur was partially visible on her tummy. I smiled as I watched the kitten's sapphire eyes droop contentedly. Then I noticed her teeth. An extra set of canines protruded from the top and bottom of the kitten's mouth on both sides. "That's creepy," I said as I laid her in the cardboard box. "You're a creepy little kitty." You're a creepy little kitty, I sing-songed to her as I rubbed her head. It took a couple of hours to finish up the chores, and by the time I finished, the veterinarian's office was open. The The doc kept some time available in the morning for walk-ins, so it wasn't long until Carol, the veterinarian assistant, had washed the blood off the cat. The kitten was cuddling against my palm when Doc Weller pushed his way into the exam room with a cup of coffee. "Mar, are you picking strays up again?" Doc asked as a greeting. I knew Doc Weller before he was a doctor. We met in middle school when my dad moved us north from Tennessee to help on my uncle's farm. I was the only middle schooler in class with a twang in my voice, but Weller didn't care, and that made all the difference. You were never gonna stop teasing me about them possums, are you? I said as I handed the kitten over. Never, he said as he began poking at the chocolate fur ball. Well, possums eat ticks, so basically it was community service. Sure, that must be why you named them. My only reply was a raised eyebrow. Those teeth are something else, Doc said as he jerked his hand back. I could see blood beginning to well up on the doc's calloused finger. Those second sets of canines have an edge to them, but she looks healthy. Doc set the kitten down on the exam table. You won't have trouble getting this one adopted. Those emo Wiccan kids would love her. Would they? Absolutely. Bill, my youngest, is dating one of those. Brought her home from college last weekend. Spent all Saturday night witnessing the moon and weeping. Seems like we're getting more of that type all the time around here. I laughed at his annoyance. Not all kids want to freeze their asses off hiding in the middle of a pasture drinking Coors Light, I said. I said this knowing perfectly well that Doc and I spent many teenage nights drinking his dad's beer in the middle of my uncle's pasture. I don't see why not. Builds character and a healthy respect for watching where you step. I chuckled, thinking about how many nights of underage drinking ended up in scraping cow shit off school shoes. I'm thinking about keeping her around the farm, I said as Doc transferred the kitten to her cardboard box. In that case, let's get the first round of vaccinations in her, and I'll send you home with some formula, dewormer, and a flea and tick treatment. You got a name for her? Something like Bang, or... Doc looked down surprised as the kitten licked at the blood seeping from his finger. Oh, Vampirella, he said with a scowl, and pulled his hand away from the kitten's tongue. I was thinking Muffin. Blood Muffin, Doc said with a wink. That's disturbing. The wink or the name? Both, I said, as I stretched Muffin out on the exam table so Doc could administer the shots. It would be nice to have a cat I could witness the moon with. Doc Weller eyed me menacingly as he uncapped his syringe. It would be a week before the kitten could try solid food. When we got him back to the farm, I made some formula and fed the little beast until her tummy started to bulge. I swear I put 3 bottles worth into her, which was surprising because the bottle was larger than she was. I didn't spend much time thinking about it because I had a few acres of fence that needed mending and not enough hours in the day. We were halfway through lambing season, and it seemed every time I turned around that a ewe would drop twins in the freezing cold and walk away from one of them. I tried my best to get the expecting mothers inside, but I would find myself out in the middle of the frozen pasture searching for newborns most nights. It was the morning after Halloween when I found the lamb. He was half dead when I got him inside. Covered in placenta, it was apparent his mother dropped him and walked away. It was lucky the ravens didn't get him. I have a warming box in my back porch, so I placed the lamb in it and searched my freezer for bags of colostrum. The lamb didn't have the energy to move, and I knew I would have to tube feed him. As I worked over the lamb, Muffin watched. Muffin didn't get close at first, but it was obvious she was paying attention to the lamb. It wasn't too long ago that I had to do something like this for you. Why is it so hard to keep you little buggers alive? I joked as I gently slid the tube down the lamb's throat. I chatted to Muffin while she sniffed at the limp form in my arms. When they're newborns like this, they haven't eaten. It's best just to tube feed them if they seem weak. It helps warm them up. And they don't have to work as much to get the calories they need. Of course, you just have to be careful not to get the tube in their windpipe. Milk in the lungs would not help at all. Muffin huffed at me and blinked slowly. I had the odd feeling that Muffin truly understood what I was saying. Too many hours alone on the farm will do that. After checking that the tube was in the right spot, I fed the lamb a bag and a half of colostrum while Muffin watched. She watched the whole thing. I felt a little odd about her unblinking attention. It was like having a stoic supervisor watching you work. After I fed the lamb, Muffin sat next to the warming box with a curious expression on her furry chocolate face. "You look like you're thinking pretty hard," I said as I sat and scratched Muffin's back. "It's our job to keep these little critters alive, or at least try to. This property isn't the safest area for sheep farming. It's just the one I could afford. The truth of it all is predators around here eat sheep, ravens, vultures, coyotes, wolves, foxes." I thought for a moment and continued. "Bears, dogs, eagles, bobcats, mountain lions. Geez, I did not pick the right place for a sheep farm." Muffin muzzled my hand, and I gave her more scratches under the chin. "Feel free to hunt any of those predators, you little tiger," I said with a chuckle as Muffin purred and muzzled into my chest.
She's going to take that advice very literally.
I love her already.
She's going to protect all of these sheep.
Yes, it's amazing. So good. The following weeks went by smoothly. I named our new sheep Ed, and after a few days, I put him in the barn with the other bottle-fed lambs. Muffin seemed oddly fascinated with the little guy, and I would find her occasionally watching the lamb as it bucked and played in the barn with its new friends. After Ed was big enough to be let out into the pasture, Muffin started disappearing into the wooded area around the farm for hours at a time. At first, I was worried about her, but she showed up for meals and bed, so I just accepted it and got on with my chores after a while.
Yeah, cat's got a cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Cat's got a cat. They got a meander.
Yep. It was Saturday morning and something was wrong. Muffin wound her long form in between my legs as I stood on the back porch drinking coffee and trying to convince myself that I didn't want to go back to bed. Then I noticed it. The air was too still. Farms are noisy places. Coyotes howl, crickets chirp, and birds make all sorts of ungodly noises. At least they did. I walked back into the house, grabbed my coat, and placed my coffee mug in the sink. When I stepped back out, the feeling of wrongness had gone away, and I couldn't understand why 1 minute was so different from the next. Then I heard a scratching at the door. I turned and Muffin sat behind the sliding glass door. She must have gotten stuck in the house when I went back for my coat. I opened the door, Muffin walked onto the porch, and the world stopped making noise. No birds, no bugs, and no coyotes. Only the sheep were making noise. Which figures, because sheep are too dumb to take a hint. The farm and the surrounding woods were silent until I shooed Muffin back into the house.
Literally everything around them is afraid of Muffin.
Sorry, I was trying to laugh and I had a mouthful of beer. Who knows what Muffin thought as I carried her in and out of the house. I tested my hypothesis by shutting her inside, then letting her out, only to scoop her back up and shutting her indoors again. She looked at me with her head tilted to one side in confusion, but I was generous with the treats, and that seemed to be all that was important. I couldn't quite grasp what I had just witnessed. Did my kitten frighten all the animals around the farm? It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? And when I had last seen a raven, when had I last seen a raven or a coyote? in the end, I decided to ignore it. I felt like I was ignoring lots of little things lately, but I couldn't do anything about it one way or the other, so what's the point? That's what I kept telling myself anyway. The farm is small. I get my income mainly from wool and a few other odd jobs I can piece together throughout the year. I might make some deliveries or rake hay for a little extra income. One of my odd jobs is keeping an eye on the neighboring farm. The Light Brook cornfield is 2,000 acres and millions of dollars worth of machinery and chemicals. Terry, the farm manager, paid me a small amount every month to keep an eye on the place since I was just across the road and in my pasture well past dark most nights. This night was no different. The holidays had come and gone, and now the weather was just brutal without anything festive to look forward to. Inches of snow layered over a thick coat of ice, turning my walk to the barn into an exciting game of, will I fall on my ass? While lying in the snow after my second fall, I noticed a floodlight go out above the neighbor's farm, and then I heard the gunshot. Without bothering to stand, I pulled out my cell phone and called Terry. I told him what I saw as I lay in the powder. Terry told me to stay safe and contact the sheriff's department. While I was on the phone with the sheriff's department, 2 more lights went out with 2 more gunshots, then the roar of an engine. In the moonlight, I could make out a full-sized pickup pulling into the neighbor's farm. The truck backed up to the long cylindrical form of an ammonia tank, and before I knew it, they were driving away with the tank hitched behind them. A minute or 2 passed, and then 2 sheriff cars sped by with their sirens and lights. I hauled myself out of the snow and trudged carefully back to the house. An hour later, I was visited by Deputy Fahey. Fahey, am I saying that right? Fahey?
That's how it's spelled, so yeah.
Okay, all right. Fahey was a dork in high school. All spindly legs and elbows with a goofy open smile that pissed off bullies and charmed girls. We were in different grades, but we played football together. I invited him into the house for coffee. Muffin wound herself around his legs. Couple of tweakers, Fahey stated as he stretched at my kitchen table. It might have been the Donnelly brothers, but don't go spreading that around. We don't know for sure yet. The truck took the curve off the junction too fast and rolled. The 2 in the cab legged it into the timber, but the crash released a thick cloud of ammonia. We couldn't follow him. After taking my statement, Fahey reached down and scratched Muffin's ears. What's your cat's name? Muffin, I replied as I topped off Fahey's thermos. I don't think I've ever seen a chocolate-colored cat before. Dang, she pretty. Muffin purred loud enough to shake the walls, but her joy was short-lived. Fahey's radio squawked, and I walked him back to his car. They may still be around, so lock your doors and I'll give you a call, and give a call if you notice anything, Fahey said as Muffin trotted along beside him. Fahey folded his long frame into his car and gave Muffin another scratch. If you do call, we won't be far. The sheriff has us all combing the back roads for those 2 idiots. Muffin trotted back to me and sat down, gazing up at Fahey and purring contentedly. Oh, later, Ma. Thanks for the coffee. Nice to meet you, Muffin, Fahey called as he drove away. Muffin watched him go. He's a happily married man, Muffin. Muffin stopped purring. I can't believe that dog charmed my cat, I murmured to myself. Muffin chuffed at me and looked grumpy as she stalked back to the house. I couldn't help laughing at her. Jokingly, I said, if anyone tries to break into the house, you have my permission to give them the same treatment that you gave the ravens. Then I'll tell Fahey what a good job you did. I'm sure he'll be impressed. Muffin just raised her chin in distaste and walked away.
I fucking love Muffin.
Strangely enough, I fell right to sleep. A full day of trudging through snow and mending fences will do that. The brandy I put in my coffee probably helped too. The sound of glass shattering woke me up. I hadn't been letting Muffin sleep in bed with me, but she usually found her way next to my knees at some point each night. She hopped off the bed and walked to the door. A stream of cold air twisted its way into the bedroom, and I knew someone else was in my home. Muffin padded her way into the hall while I slid silently out of bed. Found my pants crumpled on the floor and pulled them on while listening behind the bedroom door. Checking pockets, I found my truck keys and wallet, but no phone. The phone was in the living room charging. I didn't have anything to attack an intruder. I'm not a gun guy. I keep the suicide machines out of the house in case I have a bad day kind of guy. After scanning the bedroom, I grabbed the spray-on deodorant from the dresser as an impromptu can of mace. The house is small, with 2 bedrooms. I used the second bedroom as an office, and that is where whispered voices came from. I heard filing cabinet doors open and papers fall to the floor. Silently, I plucked my phone from its charger. After slipping into my boots, I exited the house. I ran for my truck, each step crunching through a layer of powder and ice. Once inside, I called the police and drove up the road just far enough to watch the farm without being in the way. In moments, flashing lights descended on my home. "No one's there," Fahey said as he sat in the passenger seat and warmed his hands on my heater vents. "It only took you 5 minutes to get here," I said, a note of belief coloring the statement. "They were there and they hadn't been gone long," Fahey reassured me. "The blood hasn't even dried yet." "Blood? Did you shoot one of them?" Fahey said as he scanned me for a gun. "I don't own a gun." I raised the can of body spray from its spot in the cup holder. "My big plan was spraying them in the face with this crap." "They must have gone to a fire or something. Couldn't have been the first time 2 druggies tried killing each other over something stupid." "How bad is it?" "There's blood all over your house and out the back door. I tracked it into the pasture and there was a big circle of blood where it just looked like there was a fire. Then nothing."
Bones and all.
Yeah. Not creepy at all, I deadpanned. "Guess I should get this over with," I said and stepped out of my truck. "You want creepy? You won't believe half the stuff I've seen since I started this job. Do you know that we have a cult?" "What? No?" "Yes, just past the Smith farm. You're on the other side of that timber you have to the east. I went out there about 6 months ago when a school bus full of 8th graders saw a man in a hood and cloak cutting up a deer near the highway." I talked to the head cultist or whatever he was, a guy named Buck.
Hell yeah, Buck.
He likes to fuck. Fahey chuckled. "Buck the cultist? Jesus. Okay, you screwing with me?" "No, one little bit. Buck straight up told me they were doing some demon summoning spell, but he had a deer hunting license and was on his own land, so I couldn't do much other than look at him with my stern face." Fahey showed me an example of a stern face. It was pretty much his regular face with a squint. "I think there will be something I'll keep to myself," I said, grinning at him. "Right, if you're gonna summon demons, don't tell anyone." Fahey stopped a few feet from my door. "Wait, did you mean my face or their demon summoning?" "You want me to answer that?" "Hey now," Fahey said with mock irritation. Our laughter died as we walked into my living room. Dime-sized splashes of blood spotted over every surface. I stepped into my office without worrying about tracking through the blood. What was the point? I couldn't make it any more worse. The office had been trampled. One of the bookcases had tipped over, and it looked like the file cabinet had been emptied onto the floor. Hordes of glistening red rolled slowly down the walls. Fahey coughed. "You should probably wear gloves when you saw through this. I'm sure those 2 idiots had a few diseases." Dazed, I tracked the trail of blood covering my office, living room, kitchen, and back porch. "Doesn't it seem like a lot of blood to you? Shouldn't there be a body?" I asked. It's a puzzle. Beihei's mouth hardened to a tight line, especially when you see the mess out back. I pulled my chore coat on and we followed the trail to the pasture. Jesus, I said, not able to grasp what I was seeing. I know, right? Beihei agreed. We stared at the circle of blood and gore in disbelief. It was about 6 meters in diameter. Flecks of bone and knots of hair were trampled into the snow. A scattering of teeth lay in the center. After walking awestruck around the disaster, the deputy and I ran out of things to chat about. Beihei eventually broke the silence. Well, I'll be back here in the morning with the sheriff. He'll want to see this. Try to get some sleep, Ma, he said, and headed to his cruiser while I wandered back to the bloody mess that was my home.
I'm surprised they let him just go back and go to sleep there.
I
feel
know,
like they'd
right?
close it off.
Like,
Depending on,
this
is Tennessee?
What?
Okay, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, crack up. Then I remembered Muffin. I called for the kitten. There was no answer, so I poured some fresh water and food for Muffin and headed for the bedroom. I needed sleep. I didn't even pull off my boots or coat. I just crashed on my bed. It was still dark when the yowling woke me up. A low, moaning yowl pulled me from a dreamless sleep. A burning, shuddering feeling led in my limbs and my head felt full. It was too early for this, but I wiped the crud out of my eyes and forced myself to sit up. The yowl sounded painful and somehow everywhere. My conscience wouldn't let me ignore a hurt animal, even if my brain was too scrambled and sleep-deprived to realize what it was. I trudged outside, thankfully that I already had my work clothes on. It's like the sound was coming from inside my head, but it got louder the closer I walked to the pasture. I kept walking. My boots crunched loudly in the frozen red snow. I was halfway to the circle when I heard a sheep bleating from a patch of knee-high scrub bush to my left. The lamb was laying on the ground, looking at something in the shrubs. Eh? I asked, confused. The yowling grew overwhelming, and I had to cradle my head in my hands. My eyes watered, and my head felt too full. I knelt down next to the lamb and shined my light under the patch of shrubs where Ed was staring. My trembling kitten looked back at me, face matted with blood, eyes glassy, drool hanging from her quivering lips. She whimpered at me, and it was obvious she was in pain. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered and continued to croon to her as I turned off my flashlight and pushed into the snow-covered shrub. I sing-songed to her as I pried the bunch of branches away from her hiding spot. "It'll be all right. It'll be okay. We'll figure this out." I finally pushed enough branches away to get a hold of my scared little kitten. I shushed her as I reached behind her front legs and pulled her up through the bramble. She was significantly bigger than she had been just a few hours before. Muffin's stomach was distended to the point that it resembled a volleyball. I cradled her gently with one arm and spoke softly to her as I hurried back to the house. We were almost to the fence when Muffin started to shudder and hack like she was working a giant hairball up from a deep echoing place.
An entire skull is gonna come out, I swear to God.
Suddenly, my little chocolate kitten went rigid. Her muscles tensed, and she began heaving and making a scraping sound deep within her throat. I don't know if you want to keep this on.
I'm hearing it, yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I held Muffin as gently as I could, but the kitten spasmed and hacked so violently that I believed she would hurt herself. Things became all the more desperate as a purple glow emanated from Muffin's mouth. My heart hammered as the glow illuminated the flurries that fell silently around us. The light steadily intensified as Muffin used every muscle in her small frame to heave, hack, and strain. Then, while I held her, she gave one more massive shudder. Muffin's mouth split at the jaw and unfolded until she looked as if a gramophone cone had been grafted to her small furry body. What? I was still holding my kitten. Somehow I hadn't dropped her. Somehow I hadn't run. Then the body of a man bubbled out of Muffin's gaping conical mouth and flopped onto the frozen ground. I stared at the body, but my mind would only allow me flashes of understanding. The man was whole, or intact, I should say. No pieces were missing, but furrows had been cut deep into the flesh. A membrane of mucus enveloped the bony and sickly form of a meth addict. A crackling, sucking sound echoed around the pasture, and I looked down at the kitten in my arms, watching as her jaw folded back into place. Muffin looked up at me and mewed. She looked normal and smaller, still fuller, like she ate a large meal, but less round, and her face looked normal, just like a cat. I compared the size of the grown man to that of my half-grown kitten, and part of my brain pleaded for this to be a dream, but I knew it wasn't. The cold was too biting to be anything but real. Muffin jumped out of my arms. She walked to the man on the ground, sniffed him, and wrinkled her nose. I bet she shook her little paw as well. It was cute, and that shocked me more than I could say. She looked up at me expectantly. It took me a moment to realize Muffin wanted something from me. "Good job?" I said, as my voice cracking and sounding more like a question than a statement. I knew I had to do better than that from Muffin's disappointed stare. "Good job," I said with more confidence. "You did a good job protecting the farm. I'll have to tell Fei-Hei what a good job you did." After a pause, I added, "There's new water in your bowl." Muffin seemed pleased. She turned and trotted happily back to the house. I stood near the body for a moment, then followed after her. Muffin would need me to open the sliding door. She is just a cat, after all.
I would kill for Muffin, but I feel like Muffin would kill for pretty much anyone or anything. I also think it's quite hilarious that Buck, who likes to fuck, lost a demon that he summoned.
Yeah!
How hilarious is that? That like he pulled off the ritual, has no idea where the demon is. Demon stumbles into another farm, gets raised like Superman by a perfectly normal person. Gotta love it.
Oh my god. Great, Captain. I love that very much. Oh, may my next cat be half as awesome as Muffin. Oh my goodness.
I think Muffin is a wonderful name for a cute little cat.
I also want to get a dog and give it a name like Reginald or Kevin.
Oh, that's also awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I also wanted to say what a nice Southern accent. Was that practiced? Do you have practice with that accent?
Not well. When I was dating Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Southern, I kind of attempted to try that. And so I'd be like, "Does this sound, honey? Does it sound like I got a Southern accent?" And apparently it's a bit more Southern Belle. And I was like, what exactly is a Southern Belle? And apparently Southern Bells are like, "Oh, bless your heart."
Yeah. Yeah, it's the
and
hospitality side of it.
all blonde and pretty and all that kind of stuff. So that's already the experience that I did. As soon as I saw that there was a twang in the accent, it just vomited out.
You had it for sure. I mean, Muffin made me think one thing and one thing only, and do you know what that was?
What?
The entire time in my head, I was just going, bop shibody doo, 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 bop shibody doo. It's just you summon the shoe body bop kitten.
Yes. Oh my god, I can totally see this whole story as one of those tunes
it is one of those things.
That would be amazing. And like the cult, passing by the cult in the background, on the failed.
The cat just stumbles away because they're too busy headbanging.
Shoo buddy blue. Yeah, hard out. That's hilarious.
All right, I'm gonna read our last story, and then we'll do a measurement. All of these stories have been good, so I'm gonna be interested to see which one we like the most.
Okay.
The story is by someone named Cymoril Melnibone. Cymoril Melnibone, also from Reddit NoSleep. The story is called "It Was a Different Time." And this one I specifically picked out for myself because I heard it was really good.
Nice.
So, Johnny Raisin was poor as shit, and everybody knew it. He lived with his mom in a trailer on the scrapyard, rent-free, because their 3 mangy dogs kept the rats and kids away. They were hoarders of the worst sort, keeping everything that other people threw away. Stacked against the side of the trailer was a teetering wall of broken, one-wheeled bicycles and tricycles Johnny had collected over the years, streaked with rust and dog piss like some half-completed Salvador Dali project. There was so much junk inside the trailer itself, it was hard to move without knocking something over. Johnny's mom was 50, if she was a day, and she complained bitterly about the cold. Staying wrapped in a massive woolen blanket that hooked and snagged on every metal object in their home. It smelled in there too, like old dog food and bug spray. But Johnny had a PlayStation 3 that mostly worked, even though the case was held together with tape. I didn't, so I spent more time in that stinking, cluttered trailer than I might have otherwise. I wasn't using Johnny, I told myself. We'd been friends since kindergarten. When the other kids picked on him, I always stood up for him. He was practically family. My parents let him come over and shower once a week, and my mom would wash his threadbare clothes while Dad cooked him waffles with maple and bacon. Johnny was the brother I'd never had, and I knew that if anything happened to his mom, we'd have adopted him in an instant. The only reason why he didn't live with us permanently was that we didn't want to hurt his mom's feelings. "She does the best she can," my mom said, her forehead crinkled with empathy. "Losing her man hurt her deeper than any of us can imagine." So, Johnny Raisin stayed living in the backyard. Sorry, wrong word. I keep thinking of Johnny Raisin as an actual raisin. He's just a raisin. It's Stuart Little, but they're helping raise a little raisin. Fucking California raisin. Claymation little fuck. So Johnny Raisin stayed living in the junkyard, and honestly, he liked it that way, because he had more freedom than any other kid our age. Johnny was always trying to make money at school by selling stuff to other kids, not just his scrapyard treasures. He was an expert scavenger. He raided the lost property boxes at community halls and libraries and walked around the streets with his head down, scanning for coins and dropped possessions. Most of what he found was garbage, but very occasionally he had a big win and sell something for $20. The rare times that happened, I'd know because he'd promptly blow it all on candy and soda, making himself sick on all the luxuries he often didn't get. So when Johnny started showing up at school regularly with his backpack full of Milk Duds, Twinkies, Skittles, and cans of Dr. Pepper, all for sale, I didn't know what to make of it. The other kids eagerly bought the contraband since Johnny was asking a tenth of the retail price. They commented on the huge, old-school steel cans the soda came in, antiques from the 80s that Johnny had unearthed somewhere on his nocturnal roamings. I was wary of the long-expired products at first, but the food and drink tasted as good as if they'd been packaged last week, so I happily filled Johnny's pockets with coins too. The mystery deepened when Johnny started turning up in new clothes. Well, technically they weren't new at all. They were relics from several decades ago, just like the soda cans. But the colors were crisp and bright, and the fabric still had packaging creases and smelled of plastic wrappers. When I raised my eyebrows at his Return of the Jedi t-shirt, Johnny just grinned at me and jingled his coin-filled pockets of his red Beat It era jacket. He looked like he'd stepped out of an old music video. "Gonna go buy Fallout New Vegas after school," he said, jerking a thumb in the direction of the mall. "Wanna come?" "You know I do," I told him, shouldering my backpack. As we walked, Johnny whistled weirdly tuneless elevator music and checked his watch. Also in theme, some decades-old Swatch model. I knew that he was playing it up on purpose. He knew I was desperate to find out where he'd gotten all this stuff, but I was damned if I was going to crack first and say anything. "So, I've been exploring Emmett's Mall, down by the lake," he said finally, breaking a full 10 minutes of silence. "Jesus, Johnny, that's where you've been getting all this stuff from?" "Yup. But the place has been abandoned forever. There's nothing left in there." Johnny just kept on grinning, giving me sidelong glances from beneath the brim of his vintage Lakers baseball cap, while I processed the information. Emmett's Mall had been the place to be once upon a time. Back in the 70s, it had been the hub of the town. According to my mom, kids would play ball in the park by the lake while parents shopped at their leisure, transported between the two mezzanine floors of fancy new escalators of shiny chrome and steel. A massive underground parking lot meant finding a spot for your car was never a problem, and it had every kind of store you could think of, stocking the latest luxuries at the time. But it wasn't to last. Everyone knew the story. One Monday morning in 1980, some kid's body had been found on the first floor mezzanine. I'm gonna go ahead and say that it was Johnny's body because there's some fucking time travel shenanigans bullshit going on right
Yeah,
here.
bro. Yeah,
Fucking
bro.
Johnny caused it. It's all fucking Mr. Raisin's fucking problem. Fucking ruined the mall for everyone. How are we gonna go crash the mall now? A security guard was convicted of murdering the teenager, smashing the boy's face in with a blunt object, then fleeing the scene. If you listen to my mom, the case against him seemed a bit light, but a black guy on minimum wage night shift probably didn't get a very good lawyer. And nobody knew who the boy was. His teeth and jaw were pieced back together, but they didn't match any known dental records. In that typical 1980s kind of way, everyone just tried to ignore that it had happened at first, to pretend that it was all erased by the guilty verdict. I guess it was a different time. Title drop. But then the store owners started reporting poltergeist activity, disembodied footsteps, whispers, stock moving by itself. When word got out that people were seeing ghosts, the popularity of the mall began to wane. Eventually, they shut up shop, store by store, until the mall was derelict, and in summer of 1981, the doors were padlocked permanently shut. 30 years later, Emmett's Mall still squatted beside the lake, too expensive to demolish and too haunted to sell. Even the homeless folk avoided it, finding other places to hunker down for the night. There were plenty of other places without such dark histories. "It's kind of a secret," Johnny told me. "Can you keep a secret?" I nodded fervently. "You know I can." "All right. Sneak out tonight around 10:30 and meet me by the mall. Bring a flashlight and your backpack. You'll need both." "Okay." We didn't talk about it anymore after that, absorbed as we were playing the new game Johnny bought. By the time I went home for dinner, I'd nearly forgotten the little prickle of fear I'd felt when he offered to show me the secret of Emmett's Mall. It was a 20-minute walk to the mall from my house, and I'd left late because I'd had to wait for my dad to go to bed before I could sneak out. As soon as I got to the patch of weeds that had nearly reclaimed the cracked asphalt leading up to the mall, Johnny called out to me, his flashlight pointed down a puddle of light at his feet. "Come on, man, or we'll be late." I wondered how exactly we could be late for something that hadn't changed for 3 decades, but I hitched my empty backpack and hurried after him as he pushed through the tall grasses that grew high around the perimeter of the mall. The steel roller doors were still pushed down over the main entrance and sported rusted padlocks, but someone had kicked in the side of the corrugated metal, bending it in just enough for a person to climb through. "This is how we get in," Johnny said, throwing his backpack through the hole, then clambering in after it. I shelved my doubts and followed quickly, finding myself standing in a foyer littered with broken glass and drifts of dirty plastic sheeting. "Come on," Johnny called, his sneakers crunching across the glass as he led the way out of the mall concourse. Empty stores gaped dark and cavernous, alarming shadows moving inside them as our flashlights swept past. There was some sort of food court up ahead, or at least the remains of one. A few broken tables and plastic chairs were scattered about, flanked by tiled planters of overgrown ferns, forming a little indoor forest. Water pooled deep in one corner, and Johnny splashed through the shallows to reach the derelict escalator up to the first floor. His feet stirred up a green smell, rotting vegetation. "Whole basement is flooded now," Johnny said as we climbed the ancient metal stairs. "Lake must have busted in, filled it all up. There's even fish in there if you're brave enough to go down." I shivered. I'd never been good with enclosed spaces or deep, dark water. I sure as shit wasn't going anywhere near that combined both. When we reached the mezzanine, he checked his watch, then flashed his teeth in a smile and nodded. "Right on time." "What happens now?" "Shh, just listen and watch, okay? You'll see soon enough." We stood in silence for a minute or so, my ears straining for the slightest hint of a sound. At first, I could only hear the occasional drip of water below us in the flooded section of the food court, but as I listened, another sound began to faintly intrude, drifting on the silence of the empty mall. Old elevator music. It was distant and eerie, tinny and thin, and distorted like it was echoing off objects that were no longer there. Chilly fear turned my throat sour, and the beam of my flashlight began to tremble until Johnny put a steadying hand on my shoulder. "It's okay, man. I've done this dozens of times. Chill." Faint phosphorescence began to prick the corners of my vision, and the music grew perceptibly louder and more real. Between one blink and the next, I realized that the gaping storefronts around us were no longer empty sockets of darkness. Instead, a faint gray-white light dusted everything, showing us a sort of ghostly after-image of what had once been inside this place. "Holy shit," I murmured. Johnny laughed softly. "Yeah, pretty fucking creepy, right? It always happens just after 11:11 p.m., like clockwork." Grabbing my arm, he hustled me along the cracked tiles of the mezzanine, making for the scratchy glow from one particular store. This one was Shirley's Candies. Squinting where Johnny pointed, I could see the eerie pale cursive of a neon sign scrawling itself across a window that didn't exist, spelling out its name. My mom told me about it. She used to love the milkshakes from this place. The music was louder here, real enough that my prickling ears could almost pinpoint the position of the invisible speakers it was coming from. Inside the candy store, the scratchy, faded white lines of shelves were superimposed over the rotten carpet, and humps of broken, waterlogged ceiling tiles, like scrapes on the negative of a photograph. "Okay, so watch me," Johnny said, scanning the ethereal grid of ghostly shelves. "You gotta wait until the music sorta peaks, and then you could grab stuff." His hand poised over one of the intangible shelves, and we listened as the music ebbed and flowed. Suddenly it surged and swelled as though piped directly into our ears from another era. Johnny swiped at the shelves that now seemed less after-image and more a double exposure, one reality layered over the top of the other. With a whoop, he held up a very real box of Charleston shoes, and as the music faded away again, he stuffed the box into his backpack. "You never know quite what you're gonna get," he told me, walking down the lattice of ghostly aisles. "But that's half the fun." For the next 2 hours, we moved from store to store, pilfering random goods from another time, until the music finally receded completely into the dark, replaced with the echoing silence of an abandoned mall. I thought about the mall a lot over the next few days, wondering if what I'd experienced had been some weird fever dream or hallucination, but the boxes of expired candy under my bed and the gleaming, new Atari 2600 beside my TV told me a different story, one I was still struggling to believe. We went back again nearly a week later, the unearthly ancient music haunting us as our hands groped for forgotten treasures in those strange, small hours when two different worlds seemed to cross over. This time was easier at first. My lingering fear of the unknown had all but worn off until Johnny suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled me down to the ground, hissing a warning. "What?" I whispered, feeling the pulse ramp up as I crouched on the rotten linoleum. Putting a finger to his lips, Johnny shook his head, then pointed through the smeared phosphorescence on the shelves in front of us. On the other side, a figure moved. Like the shelves, it was grayish-white, featureless, but certainly humanoid, and somehow deeply, deeply threatening. My vision stuttered. My bladder clenched suddenly, and the urge to piss nearly overwhelmed me. As the creature moved toward us, Johnny kept his hand in a fistful of my hoodie sleeve, pulling me right through the insubstantial shelves and out onto the mezzanine, where he ducked into another shop. He looked like I felt, his eyes wild and his breath coming in ragged gasps. "What the fuck was that?" I choked, my voice strangled in my throat. I'd never been so afraid in my life, and I had no idea why. "Ghost," Johnny panted. "You gotta watch out for them. They come after you sometimes. Chase you if they see you." "Jesus fuck, Johnny. You never said shit about ghosts." He spat into the darkness. "Well, it's a fucking haunted mall, isn't it? What the hell did you think would be here, Lewis? Why do you think everyone up and left in the first place?" I swallowed my own sour saliva, not wanting to think too much about what had just happened. "What do they do if they catch you?" "I don't know. I've never been caught." "Maybe they pull you into the ghost world. Maybe they steal your life to make themselves real. I'm not a fucking ghost expert. I just know, in my gut, that if they catch you, something bad will happen. You felt that, right? You can feel the bad all around them, like death, coming for you." The music was fading away now. It was almost 1:11 a.m., the time when the ghostly mall closed. Heading for the foyer, I shook my head, shouldering my loot-filled backpack. "Well, in that case, I'm not coming back here ever again. It's not worth it for some old candy and ancient video games." Johnny said nothing as he climbed after me through the hole in the steel door. I wondered how many times he'd been here, and how many times he'd almost been caught. I wondered why he didn't just stop. Worry ate at me every time Johnny turned up with a bag full of mall contraband to sell at school. He had an eBay account now, after buying his first laptop, and was starting to see some real profits from selling mint, vintage goods to actual collectors. I tried to tell myself that he knew the risks, but the fact was, he didn't know the risks. We had no idea what would happen if he got caught by the ghosts of Emmett's Mall, and I felt like the world's shittiest friend for letting him put himself at risk like that. I'd always been Johnny's defender. Everyone knew it. That if they fucked with little scrawny Johnny Raisin, then Louis Belmont, the tall, fast kid, would come and beat your ass for messing with his friend. Now, he was facing something so much worse than kindergarten bullies, and even if he was out doing it out of choice just because he wanted the money, I felt like crap for not being there for him when he needed me. When Johnny turned up one day with a big bruise on the side of his face and a welt in his hand, I knew exactly what happened. "I fell," he tried to tell me. "Like hell you did." He gave me his lopsided grin and shrugged. "Well, they didn't catch me. I got away." "Not without getting fucked up. I'm okay." "You're not okay. You need to stop, Johnny. His grin stuttered and faded, and I heard the receding mall music in my memory as his smile deserted him. I can't. I can't, Lewis. I blew out a long breath. Fine. If you need to keep going back to that place, I'm coming with you. At the very least, I can be your lookout so the spooks don't get you. I thought about how weird it was that we were talking so casually about otherworldly spirits, as if they were just mall security that we needed to dodge while shoplifting. It was more fun with you there anyway, Johnny said, forcing lightness back into his voice. I tried to do the same. Well, I guess that settles it then. They seemed more vigilant now, the unnatural denizens of Emmett's Mall aware of us somehow, as though we'd been seen pilfering from their world and word had spread. I wondered if we'd outstayed our welcome, but Johnny was convinced everything was still okay. Whether that was just his greed talking or whatever else was driving him, I wasn't sure, but with my baseball bat tucked under my arm, I felt less scared of the spirits that haunted this place. I figured if they could hit Johnny, maybe I could hit them back. We did all right for a while there, staying out of trouble. It was a big mall, and 2 hours seemed like a short enough time not to get caught. There had been a couple close calls. Johnny couldn't run as fast as I could, but we knew the place well enough now that we could always find somewhere to hide. And then it all came crashing down on us. We'd been switching the days we went to the mall, as if it would confuse the ghosts, assuming they'd thought like we did. This time it was a Sunday. I'd been on guard at the top of the escalators when I heard pelting sneakers, then Johnny calling out to me, true alarm in his voice. Clutching one strap of his backpack, he was running as fast as he could along the top mezzanine, his stupid Michael Jackson jacket jingling as he ran. But the ghost was faster. It loped along behind him, all silvery white limbs and rangy pale body, bearing down on him even as I ran to help, my baseball bat primed to swing, and then it caught him, and everything turned red. Blood spattered the mildewed tiles, bright at first, then darker and darker as the ghostly thing smashed Johnny's head to a pulp.
Oh my God.
I remember every detail vividly, watching my friend's skull cave in with each impact from that blurry gray-white arm, the limb too long, a streaky smear rising and falling. I felt like I was running through invisible barriers, distortions in the musty air, too slow. The bat swung hard in my hands, connecting with something solid, knocking the ghost away and out of our world, but far too late. For just a moment, the wreckage of Johnny's ruined skull gaped up at me, all glistening brain and bright bone where my friend's face had been, and then he flickered out of existence, just as the mall music ebbed away. Even as I raged and sobbed and paced, hunting up and down, waiting for the music to swell again, I already knew Johnny was gone forever. There had always been something nagging at me about this place. It was more than just a ghost mall. The things we'd been stealing had been too real, too genuine and new. But that was a secondary concern. I knew that finding her son was dead would quite literally be the end of Johnny's mom. I got no sleep that night, nor the next. I begged off school with a migraine and sat on my computer looking up anything I could about Emmett's Mall and finding nothing. Eventually, I emailed the local newspaper asking if they had any old articles on file, and they obliged, sending me original scanned article about the body. When I read the description of the battered corpse, all my fears were confirmed. Boy aged between 13 to 15, wearing a red jacket, a Lakers cap, and new Levi jeans. The original body that had started it all, the body that had cursed the mall in the first place, had been the body of my best friend, Johnny Raisin. We hadn't been stealing from a ghost mall at all. We were the ghosts, shoplifting goods from the past, making the people who owned the stores think the place was haunted. I was so stupid. I should have been able to figure it out, and worst of all, I'd failed Johnny. I'd failed his mom, too, and there was no fucking way I was ever going to tell her how he died. The article contained the name of the security guard who had been charged with the murder of the unidentified boy, and I looked him up immediately. He'd been sentenced to life in a maximum security prison where he died several years later, killed by another inmate. The man had always protested his innocence, but I knew what had happened. I'd seen Johnny's death with my own eyes, and it was certainly murder. But with the man dead already, there could be no justice for Johnny. No way I could pay him back for what he'd done. I eyed the baseball bat propped against my desk, remembering how solid Johnny's attacker had felt in that moment, how tangible the impact when I'd managed to knock him away. Maybe there was a way to get payback, after all. While the police hunted for Johnny Raisin, missing for a week now, I hunted for his killer. Every night I went to the mall waiting for the ghost. Sometimes I saw it, waving the pale smear of its long arm like it was taunting me, and then it would vanish. Sometimes it ran from me and I'd give chase, ready to pay it back for all it had done to my friend. It was elusive, as if it knew I was hunting it. Sometimes it disappeared from one spot, then reappeared on the other side of the mall almost before it had faded from in front of me, almost as if it were two versions of it. It became my mission, the focus for my grief. I managed to clip it with a pretty good swing one night, but it vanished again, and I stood and howled with rage, shaking my bat at the ceiling and swearing I would fucking kill the damn thing. And then it eventually happened, exactly as it should have. I could tell the ghost had its back to me, and I ran. Right as the music peaked, echoing through the abandoned mall, hearing me, it turned, then fled along the mezzanine. Yelling incoherently, I chased it down, putting everything into my long strides. I was faster than it was, and as it stumbled, my bat came down on its head. Silver sparks exploded from it as it went down, and screaming with triumph, I struck it again and again until brilliant silver pooled around what had been its skull. Too late, I saw another ghost approaching, charging straight for me, and then a powerful blow smashed straight into my jaw, knocking me sideways. As I lay on the filthy floor, the world stuttered and flickered for a moment like a slipped film, and I saw red. A red jacket, a Lakers cap, a mangled skull, and an achingly familiar boy standing over us, holding a baseball bat.
Oh.
It's been 8 years since I murdered Johnny. 8 years since I discovered that there were never any ghosts in the mall, just echoes of ourselves all tangled up in a big mess of temporal spaghetti until none of it made sense anymore. Johnny's mom died a year after his disappearance. I arranged for her to be buried near the John Doe of Emmett's Mall so she could still be near her boy. There's no way I can forgive myself for any of this, no way to atone for it. Emmett's Mall still sits there, slowly rotting away, tempting me with its quantum mysteries, telling me I can go back and stop myself from killing Johnny, that I can fix everything. But time doesn't work that way. What's happened has happened. There can be no paradox, no change. Johnny's life was a perfect loop, and I was the hand that spliced it into shape. Maybe one day I'll be rich enough to buy that time-forsaken mall and smash it into dirt, but for now I still have too many demons to deal with. Until then, I urge all of you, just stay the fuck away from Emmett's Mall.
Wow.
It was a different time. That rocked.
That was very cool. I
That
fucking
was...
love things that have like time portal overlap simulation.
I love when it comes together too, because if you can't see it coming, like naturally we see the twist before they do. The first twist being that he was the kid who went back in time and got killed, and that's why they didn't have dental records, because he didn't exist yet. We all see that one coming. What we don't see coming is the fact that it's just another version of the friend who did him in, and that the ghosts they were seeing, like a double layered twist is insane to pull off that well in such a short form story. That's great.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
I audibly gasped. That was great.
I heard you. I heard you fucking gasp. Yeah. Man, all 4 of these stories were good.
I know. Yep. No, all of them were
I
gems,
curated
and it's
this
hard
one.
to pick.
I curated it. I went back through my shit, and I said all of those have had good reviews, so we're gonna read all of them. And lo and behold, all of them were good.
Nice. When you do that, do you just look at the comments, or do you like kind of skim read bits and pieces to get a feel of the story?
I believe each of those might be best of the month winners, or honorary mentions, or simply on someone's like best of list.
Nice.
Or they were recommended for me. I don't know anymore who sends me stuff and says, read this. I just have a collection of it, obviously.
Nice.
So it could have been any, it could have been A, B, C, or D. Could have been any of those things. What I will say is I think there's always a reason. I very rarely just grab random shit anymore. Someone either tells me, hey, read this, and then it gets cataloged, or I read an article somewhere that says, if you liked this, then read this, which is kind of like a referral. And then back in the day, like the first 2 stories we read, I've had those for years. We just haven't read them. They were probably best of the months or most popular at the time they were posted. Somewhere in the last 10 years. But even then, I think it might have just been, like you said, it could have been someone's comment saying, if you liked this, then read this, or this was one of the best that I've read in a while. Yeah. There, it could, XYZ, you tell me like which way we found them, and it's probably true.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Out of the 4, which one did you like the most?
I obviously loved Murder Muffin, but my love for fucked up time travel matrix simulation overlapping ghosty killer stuff overrides all of that, and I like this last one.
I liked all of them. I think Glenmont Metro is like legitimately a nightmare. I think Blue Dollars is just a good story. It's just a good comeuppance kind of like don't go chasing waterfalls, you know?
Yeah.
Kitten is just a good story. Kitten was cute. Kitten was fun.
Yes.
Kitten was arguably the reason I wanted to record this episode with you. So we gotta give Kitten some love. But I definitely think it was a different time. It's just solid. It's just a solid fucking story.
Yes. Glenmont Station 1. I also really enjoyed it started to make more sense once I realized what was happening, but also at the same time it's like, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Or I understand that feeling, so it kind of took away the shock and awe.
The impact, yeah.
But still good, still triggered some things, and still relatable in some way.
Yeah. And but still horrifying.
This last one I think is my overall favorite.
I think I agree. I think I probably would say different time, Kitten, Metro, Blue Dollars, in that order is probably my ranking for today's episode. I really just didn't like the kind of sanctimonious feeling of the end of the Blue Dollars story.
Yeah.
Everything else about the Blue Dollar story, like, don't get into sin and greed. Just let the, don't overstay your welcome when you're dealing with demons is probably all that we needed for that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
exactly.
you're dealing with demons,
yeah.
don't fuck around. You know, if they offer you, you know, if you got a way out and you were given your out, take your fucking out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad my whole psyche doesn't, like, I can't gamble. I've had 3 people sit at my shoulders and behind me and guide me through a round or 2 of poker, and I just do not understand.
Well, I don't like poker. I think poker is a boring and purposefully stupid game because too much of it is not up to you at all. And I think to remove my choice and replace it with my ability to bluff, I just don't care anymore. It's not fun for me anymore. Because legitimately, here's why poker is broken to me, and people can fight me in the comments. I don't care. I'm not going to listen. Poker is something that could be broken by one of my favorite people on the show, Where Am I? Because here's how Where Am I would play poker. He would sit down at the table. He would push all of his money into the center and say, all in, without looking at them. Without looking at the cards. I can see it in my head. He would do it, and it would frustrate everyone, and no one would want to play with him, and it would ruin the game because there's a 50% chance, because of whatever the dealer's going to lay down, there's a 50% chance, maybe less, maybe 25, 30%. I don't know. I'm not going to do the math. There is a percent of a chance that he's going to beat you without even fucking looking. And that ruins the game for me. That makes the game pointless and stupid because it means that even without sitting at the table, seeing someone do that, knowing that they could win, pisses me the fuck off. So no, thank you. I'm never going to play poker.
That's legit. Yeah.
You can't do that with almost any other game. He plays Secret Hitler the same way, which is I'm not even going to look at my cards. I'm just going to be an asshole. And that frustrates me greatly because you can't. You need to know the information on the cards in front of you. For poker, you genuinely don't. And that's why poker is broken to me. Like, if you did that with blackjack, the game would not continue. The guy would say, no, like, these are your cards. You can't keep saying hit me without looking at them. No, your cards are in front of you. This is how we play the game. Like, there's only so many games you could ruin by meta gambling your involvement. You got what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So that's why poker is fucking stupid to me. And I hope everyone enjoyed my TED Talk.
Yes. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I come from the different end where, like, I went to a casino in Oklahoma and didn't really know how to do anything, wandered around, looked at all the different things. The person I was with tried a few different things, and then I was like, okay, screw it. I'm here. It's run by natives. I may as well put some money into it. And sat down at a Lord of the Rings pokies.
Yeah, I've done that one before. It's awesome.
And of course, I win money on the Lord of the Rings one.
I have too. I love the Lord of the Rings machine.
Oh, it was very silly, but yeah, it was just kind of very much happy-go-lucky, and then all of a sudden I won like almost triple what I put in, and then it was just like, okay, that's nice, and then just gave my friend the winnings and just watch them play.
Exactly. It's half the fun is watching. If you're not the type who wants to risk anything, then half the fun is just watching. I can luckily say that almost every time I've been to a casino, I've left with more money than I've put in, and it's purely luck. It's almost purely luck. Yeah. I could think of less than 5 fingers on one hand times I've left a casino frustrated, having lost a ton of money. I can maybe think of 2 times that's happened. There are 20 other times where I've left a casino with either 30% more, 50% more, or sometimes 100 or more more money than what I put into it. Like when I was a kid, I gambled overseas for the first time because you could gamble at 16 if you're intercontinental. So gambled overseas, put $60 on a table, left with 300 something, and never went back because I had like tripled my original claim like 2 times in a row, and my uncle was just like, no, this is when you walk. And I was like, cool. So anytime I come back is just going to be losing money from this point. And he said, yes. And I said, cool, I'm never coming back. And he did. He continued going back. And near the end of the trip, I asked him how much he made. And he said maybe $80. But that's because he was down 100 one day, came back the next day, went back down the next day, then back up the next day, and next thing he knew, he was like up 80, and he was like, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I remember seeing him and being like, you were up 200 at one point, and he's like, no, I lost more than half of it. And that's where I'm like, you gotta know where to draw your line. You got to know when to stop and when to walk away. And hey, that brings me to one of my favorite feelings that I love to remind people of. I once used this song to break up with a girl. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away. Know when to run. You gotta count your cups when you're sitting at the table. You do have to count your money.
Bro. Yeah. That's amazing. That's the best breakup song.
I did. That's a true story. I used that song to break up to someone once.
But that's the thing, right? Like once you get into bigger games, and in the context of that story, or you've become aware that it's dealing with your soul
is on the line.
Still want to.
You're a fucking idiot.
You fucking deserve it. You fucking asshole. Get the fuck out of my face.
I'm glad you feel the same way about it as I do, because there are people on this show. I'm looking at like Harold Heavy Hands when I say this, where he's like, I'm going back in there.
God fucking damn it. As someone who's had addiction issues, I'm glad gambling was never one of my vices.
Yeah, that's a demon for sure.
Jesus.
For sure.
Yeah,
in
bro.
itself.
Oh, God.
Anyway, this has all been wonderful. This has all been magical. I appreciate the hell out of you for coming on this journey with me. This is one meaty episode, but it's been a while, so I wanted to flesh it out a little bit.
Hell yeah, Kapai. Thank you, Captain. That was a bloody good one.
Oh, and the fun part of this is I think this is the story. This is the episode that's going to air quite literally. Let me double check this. This is the episode that's going to air the week I go to Japan.
Yay!
So it's the last bit of work I have to do before I take a month off.
Nice. Hell yeah, dude. Oh, that sounds awesome.
So yeah,
I'm so stoked.
Looking forward to that. When you see this posted, you'll know. I hope he's having a good time wherever he is.
Hell yeah, dude. I'll be keeping an eye out for any updates on either of the platforms.
And then as soon as I get back, just as everyone is hearing this right now, as soon as I get back, the next thing we're starting, when I get back in June, this is a preview, I'm starting a huge series with Where Am I that's maybe going to be like 5 or 6 episodes long. And it's fucking gnarly. It's one of the best things I've read on the show so far.
Holy shit. Oh, yay. Awesome.
I love that we keep going up peak, but for me, the interest in this thing rivals left-right game.
Dude.
So be on the lookout for a new series starting in June. When I get back from Japan,
gosh.
A new series with Where Am I? And it's one to pay attention to, folks. I hope people really like it. So without much else to spoil.
I'm clenching my butthole in anticipation.
With anticipation. Exactly.
Nice. Fuck yeah. Cool, dude. Yay. Thanks heaps for having me again. Those are some nice stories. And yeah, That last one really got me. I also started thinking it might have been some type of trickster god or something.
Yeah.
Which piqued my interest even more.
Gone anyway. Yeah. I want you to give me, before I stop recording, I want you to give me one last message for our audience, because we've had a lot of good messages today. Lots of good advice. What's the last thing you want to tell the people?
All right, the last thing I want to tell the people: Te taia te pehea. It is what it is.
It is what it is, buddy.
Te taia te pehea. It is what it is.
I love that.